And welcome to the Podcasting Twitter Strategy webinar today. I really want to thank my friends Dwayne for moderating the chat room and for Darren for being here to help as well in the presentation. Look, I'm going to give the disclaimer. I'm not a genius. I'm not the expert. I'm just a guy who got drafted to present an interesting presentation on how to use Twitter to grow your audience as a podcaster. And so that's what I'm going to do. This all began a couple of weeks ago in a Facebook group for podcasters. We were discussing one Sunday afternoon how to use Twitter to grow your audience. And at the end of the long discussion, one of the members asked me to put this webinar together, and I asked my friend Darren, from whom I've learned a ton about using Twitter to grow your podcasting audience, to help me with this. And so he's going to be on in just a little bit. Dwayne is moderating the room. If you have any questions, you can ask those. He'll try to go through and pick out the best. And if we've got room at the end of the event, then we'll take a few questions as well. So let's get started, and we will begin talking about how to use Twitter to grow your podcasting audience. And first, as I was talking to Darren earlier this morning, I believe it's important to understand the why so that you can understand what you're doing and modify it as it fits your needs. So let's talk a little bit about what social marketing is. The word social is in that term, social marketing, for a purpose. The word social means something, and what it means is that you must have social interaction. And the reason why you must is because, number one, your audience expects it, and number two, they're giving of themselves to you. They're following you, they're coming and listening to your podcast, they're going to your website. Their actions mean that they deserve a little bit back from you. So my warning for you from the get-go is, if you can't interact, then don't use social marketing. It's a waste of their time, and eventually it will become a waste of your time because you're wasting their time and they're not going to come back. Having worked in radio, television, and newspaper, and done a little bit of writing for magazine, I understand the strengths of traditional marketing. The big strength is it really is mass media. The problem is it is all one-way marketing. You have letters to the editors, sometimes you have call-in shows on radio, but really mass media has lost its appeal in a lot of different ways, but mainly because of that one strength. The mass has now become its weakness, and that is it's all one way. And so you can reach a mass of audience with radio, TV, newspaper, magazine, all of those traditional media. But with new media marketing, it becomes a conversation. Yes, you can mass market, but it is also one-to-one. And because of that one-to-one capability, you need to take advantage of it. Look at the major platforms. Twitter has direct messages. Facebook has their inbox and their messages. Even when you're using email to market, if it's set up correctly, your people that you're reaching out with will be able to reply in that email to you, and you can begin a conversation. Matter of fact, I would strongly encourage you, if they do, begin the conversation. But that brings us to the first rule of this whole thing, and that is respond. If they reach out to you, do your best to respond. I like Andy Stanley. He's a pastor of a church in Atlanta, Georgia, thousands and thousands of members. And in his monthly leadership podcast, he said a few months ago that he tries to do for one what he wishes he could do for the many. And that's a great principle to live by. Look, if you get thousands and thousands of followers on Twitter or in your podcast or wherever, and they start all responding to you, you're not going to be able to respond to each and every one. Pat Flynn has been talking over the last few months about how hard it is to keep his email bots to zero. And that's because he really, really, really wants to respond to as many people as possible. But he's learning this principle: do for one what you wish you could do for the many. and hope that that suffices. Other people will notice. They will recognize that you are doing for others, and they'll hold out hope that you will do the same for them. So respond to as many as you can, but when your time runs out, just be happy that you've been able to respond to some. The second rule is to strategize, and that's really where we're going to work in this social marketing plan. We need to strategize a way to build interaction with our audience. We need to strategize how we pick the platform we're going to use, and then we need to strategize how to build it out. And then before we go to another marketing platform, whether we start with Twitter and go to Facebook or whatever, once we've mastered the first one, then we can add another section to our platform. So we're building a stage from which we can market our podcast. And today we are using Twitter. We've chosen Twitter as the platform because, to be honest with you, in my discussions with dozens and dozens of podcasters, the overwhelming response I get from them is that Twitter is the most responsive platform. It drives clicks to the website. It drives clicks to iTunes, to Stitcher, to Spreaker, and all the others. It drives listens. If you put the Libsyn link in there, you're going to get the bulk of your response. I've discovered, Darren and Dwayne both have discovered as well, Twitter is what drives the podcasting audience. And so, because of that, we must begin to strategize how we use Twitter to grow our audience. And I'm not the expert. I'm just going to tell you my experience. I'm going to tell you the experience of a few of the people that I've been coaching over the last month or so, and how their podcasting audience and downloads has increased immensely. And I want to start with this lesson about Twitter. The average lifespan of a tweet is about 18 minutes. I have analogized it as the Twitter has the lifespan of a fruit fly. Actually, a fruit fly lives a little bit longer. From Orkin.com, their article on the lifespan of a fruit fly, they said that the average natural lifespan of a fruit fly in optimal temperatures is about 40 to 50 days, and that the female fruit flies are capable of mating and laying several batches of eggs in that time, allowing the fruit fly population in a home to multiply quickly, and that the lifespan of a fruit fly is heavily influenced by that optimal temperature. Now, in another article, I learned that female fruit flies are actually able of mating and producing eggs from day one. I mean, heck, they only have a 50-day life, so their lifestyle has to be in one in which they're able to grow their family and continue their family line. So from this, I've learned 4 great lessons about a fruit fly and how they apply to Twitter. The first one is we need to get busy. Remember, the female fruit fly can mate and produce eggs from day one. The second one is we need to multiply. We need to grow. We need to grow our audience, our reach. We need to massively expand into the Twitter sphere. And we need to be fruitful. We need to have something that has value. And we need to be fruitful and produce for other people as well. And finally, we need to know the temperature of our audience. So getting busy. And Darren taught me this very quickly as we were discussing, just in my observing what he was doing to grow his audience through Twitter. Tweet around the clock. Darren tweets 22 hours a day, if I'm not mistaken, and he can talk about that later on. But when I was talking to him, he told me that he tweets all but about 2 hours a day. He posts 5 tweets an hour. You need to have multiple tweets an hour. If they're 18 minutes lifespan, then guess what? You need to have multiple layers of tweets going around that clock. And those tweets need to give value to your audience. And then when it's time, you ask them to act. You've been giving, and then eventually you'll be asking for them to respond. So by multiply, what I mean is we need to find content to tweet that is retweetable. And the reason why is because we want to grow our audience by giving great content. When we give great content, other people who see value in that will then retweet your content out and reach people you would never, ever, ever be able to meet online. So, for instance, last week I posted a tweet of an article by AJ Amex about increasing your Twitter followers. It's a great article, and I thought it was worthy of the people who I serve. So I tagged AJ Amex in it, and I put the link, and I gave it some hashtags that would help people find value in it. And when I did, AJ retweeted it. Well, AJ has many, many, many more followers than I do. And so my Twitter sphere actually grew because of that, because I got a few people to follow me as a result of posting that, and then AJ picking it up, doing the same thing. Nick Pavlidis, one of my show notes guide customers, I wrote a show note for him for his podcast episode number 2, and the title was about asking questions, because he was interviewing the man who wrote the book, Question Behind the Question. So I tweeted, asking better questions can save your marriage, and gave the link to the website. Nick picks it up, and with 3 accounts, with more followers than I have individually and combined, puts it out there and shares it with all the people who follow him. Now people know that I am pushing stuff up for Nick, and they're going to find a way, if they need to follow me. Payboard retweeted a link I actually found in Buffer app. The effect of the continuous scroll on news site engagement. Gave it some hashtags. People were able to use the hashtags to find it. Payboard found it. They liked it. They liked the information, so they shared it. And now more people know that Show Notes Guy is in existence, and he puts out good content for them to grow their business with. So multiply. You're wanting to add to your followers using your content to do so. You also want to make sure you've got lots of stuff that is retweetable. Here's a few ways you can find that content. The first way is to build a list of Twitter accounts that you follow. You can build lists by going up into Twitter, and if you don't know how to create a list of your own, find out how to do it, and build a list of the very short number of people that you follow that give great content all the time, and retweet their stuff. If it's worth you retweeting, somebody else is going to retweet it. Find articles, podcasts that they've written, or find some articles or podcasts that they like or that they've mentioned, and then retweet the links to that as well. Create new tweets. Explain why it's of value to you and why it would be valuable to your audience. And then be fruitful. You want to follow your audience. Find those people that are the people you're trying to reach. One of the great tools that Dr. Pei King told me about in the episode I did of the Podcasters episode with her was Manage Flitter. And she uses Manage Flitter to bulk follow audiences. And so you're able to add up to 50 on the free account at a time, people to follow all at one time. And you can look for them in your niche. Then as you're following them, find out what they're retweeting, what they're favoriting, and then start looking for articles and contents that meet their needs. Remember, it's all about building a specific type of audience, the audience you're trying to reach with your podcast. Now that we've gotten to how and why we're doing all this, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on the strategy, and then we're going to get to Darren as quickly as possible, and he's going to show you what kind of strategy he has, which is similar to this, and how he uses the tool Social Oomph to accomplish it, and to accomplish it on multiple Twitter feeds. So here's my suggestion. These 2 folders on the left are podcasts that are 6+ weeks old and offers or calls to action. My suggestion has been to my clients, and when I finally implement all of mine, because I've been doing some experimentation the last couple of weeks just to learn a little bit better how to retool all this, is to offer one link to an old podcast, 1 hour, and one link to a call to action the next. Then offer a link to your podcast that is 1 to 6 weeks old every hour. Darren and I were talking this morning, and one of the things I was going to suggest is if you are in New and Noteworthy, make sure that all of your tweets are to the iTunes link. And Darren corrected me, and I accept his correction. You also need to link to Stitcher and Spreaker and all those others, but put the emphasis on the one that's going to give you the most value. And there is some question as to if the value is in New and Noteworthy, but the social proof has value, so push it. You may not want to push it completely and totally, so you can build your audience in the Android market as well, but push the iTunes link because it's going to give you that social proof, and that will give you a little bit of benefit. Then the 2 an hour is your curated content, and you could actually step it up. But this is something that you really need to work on. Find that content. We talked about it in the last 2 or 3 slides. Find the content that has value for your audience. Store it up and then use it over and over and over. And then finally, the last category, 1 an hour of what I call your friend stuff. It may be links that they've posted, it could be images that they've posted, it could be content that they've written or shared that has value, and you will be helping them spread their word and their Twitter feed. You'll also find some reciprocity there, and they will reciprocate with sharing some of your stuff as well. Let me go back to this curated content for a minute. It could be images, inspirational images. It could be quotes. It could be websites with great articles. It could be great articles. It could be other podcasts. Whatever it is that is content your audience will prosper from and benefit from, that's what you want to give them, because as you do that, you will build your brand loyalty. You give them something. It's like the quote, if you help other people succeed, you will succeed. So now we've talked about all the other parts about the getting busy, being fruitful, and multiplying. Let's talk a little bit about that temperature. Remember, the fruit fly exists 40 to 50 days in optimal temperature. You must be aware of the temperature of your audience. And here's what I mean by that. Is your audience responding? If not, then you need to find some content to put in there so that they will respond. Are they reacting? Is it a positive or negative reaction? Are they interacting with you when you reach out to them? Are they responding back to you? And do they take your call to action? When you finally put that call to action, are they responding? Are they coming to your podcast? Are they answering your questions? Are they going onto your website and subscribing to your email list? Whatever it is your call to action is, are they responding? There's a reason why we're taught over and over and over again to A/B test, and that is because you want to find the best way to reach and serve your audience so that they will respond, so that the temperature will be optimal. So you have to know your temperature, and if it's too cold or too hot, if you're sending out too many, you'll know about it. People will respond. And how to measure the responsiveness? Well, I suggest using something like Bitly links that tracks your links, and use different Bitly links and put them in a spreadsheet, know where you're sending them, how you're using them, where they're going to, and all that, and track your links and follow your followers' activity and test the use. Are you using it in social platform? Which platform? How are you wording it? You want to be able to know those things so that you can maximize your efforts, and later on you'll have the pattern and it'll be down and you'll know how to do it. You'll be able to do it from then on. Let's see. Dwayne has posted a question from Lauren Firestein. I'm out of New and Noteworthy. Link to iTunes or Stitcher or to my website. Here's my suggestion, Lauren. You want to link about 50 to 65% to your website, because your desired activity is to get them to come to your website. The other 40%, then you can send to Stitcher, to Spreaker, to iTunes, or wherever, to Libsyn, wherever. But you really want them to come to your website. That's the home. That's where where you want them to go, so that they can interact, so they can join your email list, so they can do all the things that you need, so you'll be able to measure their responsiveness. Yes, you are correct. I've always assumed linking to my website where they can get on my list is better, but am I wrong? No, you're not wrong. But when you're new and noteworthy, you want to drive that social proof. So I hope that answered your question. Wrinkles. Here's a few wrinkles I want you to think about. And this is why there's a little bit of problem with some of these automation tools. The first one is consider using images. I've yet to be able to find out, and if you know how to use Hootsuite and post images with their spreadsheet, you let me know, and I will go back to using Hootsuite. Darren will show you how to use Social Oomph. Manage Flitter is another automation tool, and Buffer App is an automation tool. But find a way to use images in your Twitter feed. Why? Because it catches people's eye. One of the reasons why that Libsyn post catches people's eye and gets them to click is because it does have a graphic with it. So consider using images. The second consideration is consider automation. I've listed 4 there. There are many, many more. Darren will be showing us how to use Social Oomph in just a matter of minutes, because I'm going to breeze through the rest of this. There's only one more slide. Finally, a conclusion of my part. Grow your audience with Twitter. It can be done. It is being done, and you can do it. And it doesn't take a terribly awful amount of work. You're going to find that out when Darren gets to his part. Secondly, post beneficial, informational posts. It's not all about you. And if it is all about you, then we got a problem, because people aren't going to follow you for very long. You want to help them improve their life. When you do, they will help you improve your audience. Get your following up by being useful, by following other people, but also by providing useful content. And then keep the number of people you follow up. You may not know this, but you need to keep the number of followers at about an 80% level of the number of people you're following. If you're following too many people, Twitter doesn't like you. If you're only following people and you're not following others, Twitter doesn't like you either. So get the number of people you follow up, and by that, get the number of people who are following you up as well. And then be interactive. Remember, it's social media. And remember the lesson of Gary Vaynerchuk: jab, 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 then hook. Provide value, provide value, provide value, then ask for their value. And when you do that, you will grow your audience. When you do that, you will grow your downloads. When you do that, you will maximize social media. So with that being said, it's time for me to turn it over to Mr. Darren Bentley. I want to thank Dwayne Scott for helping with the questions, and we'll get to those as we can, at least a few of those at the end of the webinar. Now it's time for Mr. Darren Bentley to present to us how to use Social Oomph. Darren Bentley is a great guy with an awesome voice, and he has a super awesome podcast, The Bigwig Nation. I would encourage you strongly to subscribe to his podcast. He's got great content, interviewing great people, and it's all about living life to its max. And Darren has become a good friend for me through Twitter, through Facebook, through his podcast, and other avenues as well. And so, Darren, I'm going to turn it over to you. It's 12:31, and you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. And by the way, I think you and I actually connected through
Twitter. You're
right?
Absolutely right.
Cool, cool. So yes, Twitter is, for the people listening, an incredible resource for podcasters. I mean, it's something that is incredibly, a lot of people think of Twitter and they think that it is not an intimate platform, but it is definitely an intimate platform. It's as intimate as you make it, because you can definitely have an engaging conversation with your audience, and I encourage you to do that. A lot of people look at Twitter, people that don't understand Twitter, they look at Twitter as a spam fest. the lifespan of a Twitter so short. And yes, there are people on there that spam all day long. I don't know how well they're doing by spamming because people see right through that. So to hammer home what Phil was talking about, if you provide value and you have something great to offer in terms of a podcast, I think Twitter, it's a no brainer to use Twitter for your purposes of growing an audience, growing an email list, and growing a following, building a tribe, because it's an incredible resource to do that. So, just a little bit about me before we go into it. I'm not going to make this long winded, I promise, as much as I sometimes go off and like talking about myself, but I'm not going to do that today because I want to come here and provide value for you. So, really quick, yes, I have the Big Wig Nation podcast. I've launched it almost 6 months ago, and I am quickly closing in on 100,000 downloads. So the feedback that I've gotten has been terrific. My social reach is just through the roof. I've connected with amazing people. I've had great guests on the show. So I'm doing apparently the right thing, and I'm doing what I feel I was called to do because, like I said, the show is a great show. People love it and all that. I came from a corporate background, finance, and I envisioned this show almost a year ago to the day. Actually, it was January, I think, pretty close. And then it took me a couple of months to get it off the ground. Again, it's doing really good, and I'm really proud of what I've accomplished. And I think Twitter is a great part of my success, as Phil was talking about. So I'm going to get into Twitter here a little bit and just show you a couple of the things that I'm doing and how I'm doing it. Let me just share the screen. Just bear with me for a second. I'm still here. Okay. Can you guys see my screen? Phil, can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Okay, so let me just come out of this for a second, and I'm going to go here. First, I just want to show you really quick. Here's my Twitter account. I am posting, as Phil pointed out, excuse me, I post probably about at least 3 to 4 times an hour, sometimes five. It depends. I do constantly change and measure and tweak and all that. Between the three accounts that I have, one is a personal account. On the personal account, I don't tweet as much as far as getting the shows out there, but across the three accounts, I have about 9,000 followers. And I mean, I like to keep highly engaged with those followers, and they really love what I'm doing. So let's go over. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a peek into how I structure what I'm doing. So I make approximately 6 tweets per shows, 6 to 8, and sometimes 10 and 12, and sometimes, as you can see from here, I have quite a lot for some of these, and they just get more and more. So I have a ton of stuff here in terms of different types of links that are direct download, links that are bit.ly links. It just kind of runs the gamut. But what I do is when I go into social oomph here, I want to kind of hit home on something that Phil mentioned before he ended. He was talking about different automation tools. First off, anybody that's listening to this, you cannot do this without some type of automation. It's just going to be impossible for you to do that. So just letting you know that up front. There are a ton of different options that you have available to you. And I've messed around with many of them. And as far as I'm concerned, as of today, Social Oomph is a powerful one. It's not perfect. Okay, it's not perfect, but in terms of images, you can make a queue that is specific to images. So this will post images on Twitter for you. Just letting you know that. I didn't know if you were aware of that, Phil. But yes, with Social Oomph, this is one of the few automation tools that you can actually create a queue that is, let's say that you want to create a queue that is all picture quotes. Let's say branded picture quotes, which you should be thinking about. Absolutely. That is something that Hootsuite, Buffer, and a bunch of other ones just can't do right now. But again, as I said, Social Oomph is not perfect. But let me just go into the good things about it, because the good things far outweigh the bad. So as you can see here, these are different, they call them queue reservoirs. And if I wanted to make, just bear with me for a second. All right, let's say that I wanted to make a new queue. So I will go into this queue, and let's say that I wanted this to be picture quotes. Okay, now you can see here, all right, we don't want days on there, so let's go with minutes. Now, Social Oomph per queue reservoir, which is the greatest, in my opinion. I think that's part of the power of this particular platform here. It is a great way to really segregate your content. So you can make separate queues for curated content. You can make separate queues for quotes, picture quotes, different affiliate links, whatever it is that you want to do. But it's a really powerful way, because you could literally, I mean, there's just so much control. It's a very dynamic as far as I'm concerned. And a lot of people do get scared because they think that, like, wow, this is just too complicated. Trust me when I tell you, it's a lot simpler than it looks. So here, let's say I put in every 32 minutes. Okay, now I could pick any one account that I want to, or I could pick several accounts. Depends on how often I want to tweet, where I want to tweet, and what I want to tweet about. So if you look at recycle, you would see when a new update's updated to the group, to the queue, automatically mark it for recycling back into the end of the queue when it is published. So that means that the queue is never going to run empty. And that obviously you'd want to do, because part of the automation process, you want to create very large as possible queues where you could constantly go in, add things, take things away, or whatever, but you don't ever want to run out of tweets. You don't want those queues to be empty. You want them to continue to go all day and all night long for as many hours as you might decide that you want to tweet. So here, you would choose your days, which days you could, if you didn't want to tweet on the weekends, or you decided Sunday, I'm giving it a rest today. Not that you want to do that, because there are people on Twitter on Sunday too, but there are specific times that are best. So this is something I'm not going to get into, because that could be another whole show, but there are optimal times to tweet where you're going to get a lot more retweets and favorites and everything like that. So these are things that you would want to look at, and you're going to kind of gauge it based on the content that you're putting out there.
Darren, can I jump in for a second?
Absolutely.
There are optimal times, but we have to remember that as podcasters, we're trying to reach a universal audience. And so the value of tweeting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week is, we may be asleep, but the folks in Sydney, Australia, or Brisbane are wide awake. And so we need to be aware of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with that. But what I'm talking about is, let's say that you have some new shows, or let's say that you've developed or you created a queue reservoir that specifically has branded picture with links to your show going, like, let's say, directly to the website or something like that. Typically, we know that images are always going to perform better than tweets without. So you might take something like that, and we know statistically that on a daily basis, there are certain hours of the day when more people are apt to share things. On the East Coast, it's going to be between 5 and 7 p.m. So you can have a queue. Let's say that you have one queue that is ready to go all the hours except for 5 to 7. And then at 5 to 7, you've created another reservoir that is automatically going to start at those times and specifically tweet those images, those tweets that you've created, the branded tweets, because you're probably going to get a lot more retweets and favorites. And I mean, again, as Phil pointed out, this is something that you're going to gauge because you're going to look at the things that resonate with people, the things that people are sharing by retweeting, the things that people are talking about, the things that people are asking questions about, and all that. So again, this is, a very much trial and error kind of thing. But as you start to do it, and I think that is part of the problem, it comes down to action because there are a lot of people that they kind of know what they should be doing, but for some reason, something's holding them back. Maybe they don't feel that they are great at writing headlines. And that is something that a lot of people, a headline, you want to tweet great stuff. When you're tweeting your own content, you want to create great headlines that are going to get clicks, headlines that are going to spark up conversations. Sometimes you might even piss somebody off. You know what? Then you did pretty good. You got some kind of interaction. I'm not saying I don't advocate going out there and writing a bunch of stuff that's going to piss people off, but yeah. So again, it comes down to gauging, and as you start to do it, you're going to start to see what works, how well it works, when it works best, and measure and then scale from there. So as you could see, you could set a start date, and this is an important one because I have a lot of times I'm putting together, let's say, a new queue, and I want to stop one or more queues from tweeting. So you pause that queue, and there you go. So now that is just sitting there with nothing. It's just sitting there waiting for you to come in and unpause it. Now I'm going to get out of there, and I'm going to go into one of my larger queues. Now, for me, this is a queue that I've created a couple of larger queues because, excuse me, I know that this is like more I don't have a ton of shows. The show is fairly new, and I've only done 30 something interviews. So I try to make several large queues with a variety of content. And content, again, that resonates with people. Content that it's something that you really need to know exactly who you're talking to and what is it that is going to resonate with them. So yes, Buffer has some great stuff. You could find things through all kinds of sources. You could go scouring the net through Google to get good content. For me, honestly, I think finding good content aggregators like Feedly or Post Planner or NetVibes or something like that is a great way to get content that is really good and is going to speak to your audience. So you want to obviously find things that are going to resonate with the people in whatever niche that you're talking about. So yeah, that's a very important thing. In terms of my queues here, see, you can now go into the queues. You could pretty much see the hashtags. You could see the names. You could see the shows. And this is a mixture of web links. This is a mixture of direct download links. And like I said, this is a very large queue. So this also has quotes thrown in there. It has a variety of different things. And these I usually am pausing and changing things around and jumping from queue to queue. But this particular queue, I think that in terms of as your show library grows, and I see this with a lot of guys out there like who have a ton of shows, like let's Solopreneur Hour will come to mind. Each Twitter account, he has probably well over 100 shows now. It may be 200, I don't know. But what he does is he has a Twitter account that is based on the archives, quote unquote, the archives, which would be, excuse me, let's say shows from 150 to 175. And that Twitter account is specific just to those shows. That's all it tweets. Yes, there's some content thrown in there, but again, as Phil was pointing out, this listen, Michael O'Neill's been around for a long time. He has a great business and he has tons of shows, and that's great. But for the podcaster that's starting out, you really want to try to build a loyal following. And the only way that you are going to get a loyal following is by really providing content in people's lives. Content that is going to enrich their lives, content that is going to resonate with them, that they're going to want to share, that they could learn things from. So that is the most, as Phil points out, and I can't hammer this home enough, social media is truly about being social. And as you want to try to help as many people as you can, because that's the business that we are in. So getting back to what I have here, I have these very large queues, as you can see, and you could easily manage each of these updates. And I'm going to come out of here for a second. Just bear with me. I got that up there. And I have it broken down into affiliate links, as you can see there. I have shareable content, direct download links, just a variety of different content that is tweeting not 24 hours a day. I have a couple of hours that I turn off the accounts. So if I jump over to my account right now, we see Joel Com here, which is a pinned tweet. And again, you'll see in my Twitter feed, you'll see quotes and, of course, with hashtags. Now, as we probably know, everyone who's listening here probably knows about the power of hashtags. And hashtags, I can't drive that point home enough. Excuse me. I think without hashtags, I know that a lot of people frown on it, on Facebook and other social media platforms. And personally, I live on Facebook. Facebook is probably where I spend the most of my time engaging with people. But there, in terms of being a podcaster and trying to promote your show, you have to use hashtags. In a lot of times, there's a lot of debate over the amount of hashtags you should use. You want to obviously use relevant hashtags. I recommend using righttag.com for that. You could sign up for it. It's free. You could just search which hashtags are relevant, which hashtags are good to use and are getting a lot of clicks and traffic and views. And as you can see, as I scroll down, there's a show, another quote. Here's something that I shared by Michael Hyatt, productivity, podcasting. I don't really promote a whole lot of stuff. I don't promote a whole lot of affiliate links. There are certain things that I do like and I will promote. Social Oomph is one of them because I really like it. I believe that as of right now, it's definitely a strong platform. So I don't throw a whole lot of stuff out there. And now a lot of people might think that when you look at sharing content, you obviously want to look at sharing great content. We know that. But you have to remember, if you are a podcaster and your show, you have to look at your show as great content too. So the call to action, you want to get them to your site, you want to get them on your email list, you want to do all these great things. But sometimes I think a lot of people struggle with the idea that I don't want to promote my show too much because I was told that I should be sharing a bunch of other people's content. Sharing great content is excellent strategy, but you got to remember your content is there also to help people and to enrich their lives as well. So always keep that in the back of your head when you're thinking, am I sharing too much of my own stuff? Now, if you were promoting a bunch of affiliate links or, trying to get people to do very, very specific things, then I would say, the 80/20 rule should be in effect. But when you are looking at, depending on what kind of podcast you have, what niche it is, that your show truly is about offering value and enriching people's lives in some way, you want to do that. You want to definitely keep that in mind, and don't think I'm sharing my show too much.
Darren, if I can interrupt for a moment, I
Sure.
worked in radio for years. And one of the things that we always hated when we were being a disc jockey on the air is reading all those promo cards about something that we were about to do, something we were promoting, some event or whatever. Because we'd get sick and tired of reading them because we read them over and over and over and over. And one of the things that I learned while working in radio is that the average individual doesn't even notice that you've said it until you've said it 7 times. And once they've noticed you've said it, they're not going to respond until they hear it another 7 or so times. So you have to repeat it till you're sick and tired of repeating it before you get anyone to move. And so that's one thing that I want to drive home. Don't worry if you're over promoting your podcast. When you get to that point, somebody's going to let you know that. Finally, we have a question from Lauren again, Lauren Firestein. She says, is there any guidance on where to look for hashtags? How do I find the most relevant and the most useful hashtags? Lauren, he mentioned RightTag. That's RITETAG.com. Do you have any other sources there, Darren?
No, RightTag is such a solid and robust source that I know that there are some other things out there, but personally I just go right there, and you could actually have that linked up to directly to your Twitter account. So when you are sending out tweets, you put in hashtags, and it'll just tell you as you're putting the hashtags in Twitter if those are relevant hashtags, and and it's all color coded. It's blue is good, green is great. So you always want to try to do the green, but it's play with it. You're going to see that there are you don't want to always swing for the fences when you're doing this. You just want to get good traction with the hashtags that you want to use.
It will even tell you the approximate reach of that audience just for that hashtag. So you can do a combination of hashtags and then be able to know the approximate reach that hashtag will finally land on. So RightTag will even plug into Social Oomph, I found out. It's a great tool to use to be able to grow your audience using hashtags. And so RightTag gets a huge thumbs up. So now we have 2 thumbs up. We might as well go and review movies now.
There you go, man. I'm ready to do it. I'm a
Back to you, Darren.
big movie buff, as some people out there that know me know very well. But in terms of the hashtags, yeah, again, it's something that some people frown on it. They think like it's almost like hashtags. You think that like they're the way of the dinosaur. Like on Facebook, when you see hashtags, you're actually like looking at it and thinking like, wow, this looks like retarded. The bottom line is, on Facebook, it is. It's not something that you would want to utilize on Facebook, and the same thing with Google Plus. But Twitter, it's definitely how you are going to get your tweets seen by a lot more eyeballs. So you have to keep that in mind when you're structuring those. And it's funny because as I test and track and I see what works and what doesn't, I think in terms of there's a lot of statistics out there that talk about how many hashtags and even how many times a day you should tweet, and when you start to lose engagement in terms of the amount of times you tweet each day. With regards to hashtags, from statistically, it looks a lot better. You're going to get a lot more engagement with less hashtags. Now, for me, as I was just saying, I'm looking at things and I'm really uh, implementing changes and revising and changing things. I am what I want to do is really start to cut down the number of hashtags that I am using. I think personally, this is just me. Personally, I think 2 to 3 hashtags is fine. You will see a lot of people out there that have 5 and 6. Honestly, that's where you start to lose engagement because it really looks spammy. Just looking at the tweet, most people are not even really thinking at that point if there's some value there. They're just thinking, oh, please, next. So I think 2 to 3 is a great way to start. But again, talking about structuring tweets and writing headlines and putting tweets that are really going to grab attention, pictures are very important, as Phil said, and social oomph is, to my knowledge, one of the few out there today that you can actually use as far as use it with images.
You can use images with buffer app as well, but
Okay, all right.
those are the only two I know of.
Well, the funny thing is about Buffer, I used Buffer several months ago, and I thought it was okay. But for me, it wasn't robust enough. There's so much more control that you have with social oomph, that you can really just like dial things in, and between creating specific cues for pretty much every single thing that you do. And when I go into, okay, I have quite a few cues here. There are some paused, but for the most part, you could look at that and you could get overwhelmed with the amount of options available. But the thing is, just like with everything else, keep it simple, stupid, because we tend to, as humans, overcomplicate everything. So why do we need to do that? Just make it as simple as possible and just create a couple of cues and just test it out, make a couple of cues and just get out there and start just tweeting out and see how it goes, and then you could adjust and you could play with it. But the point is, and I think this is the point that Phil's trying to drive home too, just get out there and do it. Just do something, do a little something, but do it.
I start my podcast with the words, let's do this thing. It's
That's it.
become my motto. Do it. Play with it. Learn from it. Do whatever you need to do, but take a strategy like the one that I presented and like Darren's tried to lay out for you. And if you do those things, then what will happen is you'll be able to find what works best for your audience. Why? Because you're measuring the temperature of your audience. You're trying to find the optimal temperature to expand the life and the impact of that one tweet. And by doing so, like for instance, Darren was talking, and as he was talking, he was showing 3 tweets. One of them had 5 hashtags, the other 2 had 2 hashtags. He's learning through experimentation. I talked expansively rather, on a couple of Facebook pages for podcasters just this last week about my experimentation of what I'm sending links to and how it affects the outcome. And so, you learn those things only by experimenting. Look, I've not given you anything that is hard and fast in rules. What I've tried to present to you, what Darren has tried to present to you, is a framework by which you can go that will help you have a basis to be able to build your secret formula for growing your audience. If you follow these examples, if you follow these principles, you will grow your audience. You will grow your Twitter following, and you will grow your podcasting audience. It's guaranteed. Why? Because you are doing something. So I want to encourage you very strongly to do something, to get out there and to do the things you need to do to get things done. Darren, I want to thank you very much for participating. I want to thank everyone who's watching on YouTube, because I obviously don't know how to use Webinar Jam correctly. I promise you, next time we do this, it'll be done right. You'll be able to see the webinar and not starting soon. I
Yeah.
apologize for that.
Thank you, Phil, by the way, for inviting me today. I was very happy to share. And by the way, I'm looking at my name. The at Twitter at Darren Bentley is actually at Darren underscore Bentley. So for
Okay,
anyone that
well,
wants to
guess
connect with
what?
me on Twitter, it is Darren underscore Bentley.
How's that?
There you go, man. Right on the fly. See, you are an action taker, my friend.
I don't
You
let
do
stuff.
not play games. I
No,
love it.
I'm ready to do this thing. I'm ready to win, and the only way you win is by playing. And by the way, they have a name for the winners of the world. I want a name when I lose. They call Alabama the Crimson Tide. Roll Tide. You can call me Deacon Blue.
All right,
You
man.
know what
That'll work.
that's from?
I have no clue, man. I don't
Steely
I don't
Dan,
know anything
dude.
about sports, dude. No sports here.
Steely Dan. Yes,
Oh, see,
Deacon Blue.
sorry.
Great
And
song.
I like Steely Dan a little bit.
It's a great song. Darren, I want to thank you. Dwayne, I want to thank you for keeping it together on Facebook, on YouTube, and in here. You have been an immense help, Dwayne. Dwayne Scott of the Shifting Work podcast, Darren Bentley of the Big Wig Nation podcast. I am the show notes guy, Phil Swindle. Thank you for observing, listening, and learning. I hope it's been of value to you. I'm looking forward to hearing your responses, preferably in an inbox message or an email, so that you don't humiliate me in front of my parents. That's all I'm asking. Merry Christmas. I hope we do something like this again very soon, because I think it's beneficial for the entire podcasting audience. Darren, I know you are offering coaching and other services as well. Do you want to talk about that very quickly before we go?
Yeah, well, I do work with some people right now. I'm working with people on a one-on-one basis, but on a very limited basis. I try not to stretch myself too thin, and I am in the process of also creating a program that would be an 8-week programming. Think of it as a boot camp of sorts that would basically take you from creating a vision of what it is that you would want to do, the market research involved, finding a niche, picking a niche, and knowing what the market wants out there, but also knowing that it's something that truly resonates with you, to implementing that and creating it from a logistics standpoint, the hardware and the software and all that stuff, and then of course the big thing, marketing it, and of course branding it. So that's pretty much what I'm doing right now. And if anybody again wants some more information, is interested, just hit me up, shoot me a message. I'm easily accessible. I'm usually on quite a bit.
Thank you very much, Darren. You have a great day and a Merry Christmas, and God bless you, sir.
All right, have a great one.
And God bless you all for listening as well. I hope you have a great and a happy Merry Christmas, and that your podcast grows immensely. Have a great day.
Righty.